is Candace Owens. You can check her out on Twitter at RedPillBlack. The YouTube video, which shot to prominence a few days ago in the aftermath of Charlottesville, was entitled, "I Don't Care About Charlottesville, the KKK or White Supremacy." And we've got a clip of that now, if we can go to the clip.
It's obviously the media's fault. I mean, the media is creating this entire narrative, and it is crazy, absolutely crazy to me that people have not figured this out yet. I mean, why do you think we didn't hear a single thing about David Duke, white supremacy, and the KKK the entire time Obama was in office? Do you think that they were all hiding underground, waiting for the next white president, meeting by the light of the moon? Do you really actually believe that they weren't still meeting, holding protests, having rallies and marches? Maybe the media wasn't covering it. Use your brain.
Candace Owens with a viral YouTube video. She's also an entrepreneur and a public speaker. Candace, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
Now, before we get into the Charlottesville stuff, your Twitter bio, and I like this, it says, "Force-fed the red pill, kinda liked it." Now, if we go back a couple of years, you actually started out, not to be rude here, but you started out as something of a social justice warrior, or at least you were accused of being one by some people. Tell us about social autopsy and how the fallout from that changed your entire perspective.
Right, so I mean, it's a big story. I'm going to sort of try to give you the shortened version here so we don't use up all of the time here. But basically, I created a platform somewhat naively about something that I was passionate about, which is just children that are armed with social media and have cell phones. They face a different set of rules, and they go through something that you and I didn't experience when we were in school. I really do think that cell phones and social media can be dangerous, which is why we're seeing so many young kids ages 11 and 12 committing suicide over things like Snapchat. So my goal by creating this sort of passion project was to kind of sort of monitor their behavior on social media in a way that would give them a little more responsibility at that age. Unfortunately, I landed myself directly smack in the middle of the Gamergate scandal. I knew nothing about SJWs. I knew nothing about trolls and internet anonymity. I was thinking totally outside of that box and landed myself directly in the Gamergate scandal, which I'm sure you guys have covered on this show quite extensively. A woman named Zoe Quinn contacted me within a few hours of us being on Kickstarter, and she basically introduced herself as ground zero of Gamergate and said that anonymous white males attacked her on the internet, and she threatened me and said, "Take down your Kickstarter or white males are going to come and attack you." Obviously, I refused to take down my Kickstarter. I said, "I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm not going to just back down." And she grew hysterical and started crying and said, "You're going to ruin everything," and sort of this like ominous threat. I hung up the phone with her, and within hours, I was inundated on emails by people with these obvious for Trump sort of, email addresses. And they were, calling me a nigger, threatening to tar and feather my family, just this really vicious, nasty attack. And it was beyond obvious to me that it was being orchestrated by her. And I made that claim on my Twitter account. I said, I don't know anything about the Gamergate scandal, but I can tell you that this girl, Zoe Quinn, is no victim. She is harassing herself. And I did not for a single second believe that these were white men that were trolling me. It was very obviously an organized movement from her, who at the time was the anti-harassment chief for Twitter. Making that assertion, I woke up the next day and the left media was contacting me. I had Louise Mensch from The Guardian trying to get in contact with me, The Washington Post trying to get in contact with me, New York Magazine trying to get in contact with me, all in this coordinated effort to smear my name and to stop the funding of Social Autopsy by likening us to a platform that was going to assist pedophiles, which is what they wrote about me. And they said that, they gaslit me as well, saying that this girl thought Zoe Quinn was harassing herself. She got sucked into the Gamergate myth. And it worked. The people that were once interested in funding us were kind of scared to touch us at that point. When you see any company that's being associated with the word pedophile, you back off. So miraculously, people that were reaching out and telling the true story of what happened was Breitbart, people like Mike Cernovich and the Ralph Retort, publications and people that are white nationalists were stepping to the plate and defending an African-American entrepreneur who they all told me, we disagree with what you're doing entirely, but what's happening to you is wrong. So obviously it threw me down the rabbit hole. I considered myself a liberal at that time, and I woke up. I was force-fed the red pill. I was forced to face the facts, which is that there...
By the way, Candace, I know about your story, but this is riveting. I want to beg you to come on the full show sometime with Paul and I and share these stories, because I didn't believe it till I saw it protesting the KKK and stuff on video 18 years ago. Later you learn it was actually leftists leading it. White supremacy was so unpopular that 9 times out of 10, it was literally run by the Southern Poverty Law Center or a big foundation or the ADL. They've since been caught doing it. But it just shows how they tried to set you up, bully you, to make you their cause celeb, and you would have never even known it. Wow. I mean, it's amazing that you sensed it, though, and realized something was going on. How did you sense it? Because this is how they do it. When people show up at liberal colleges, whether it's in the UK or the US or Canada, they herd everybody in when they're 18 and say, there's white supremacists on campus. Get in here. We'll protect you. This is on the news. And they call you in and then put you into a cult in the name of protecting you. That's how gangs work in bad parts of town or prison. They say, you got to be in our gang or you won't be safe. The Aryan Nations, the black nationalists, whatever. Literally, this is cult programming that you exposed going down the rabbit hole. I know I'm jumping in, but Paul, what a great guest.
Right.
No, and Alex, I just wanted to follow on from that by asking Candace. I put up a cartoon on my Twitter page yesterday, and it shows a donkey in a suit, obviously representing the Democratic Party, standing in front of a graveyard entitled Chicago Murder Victims, a graveyard full of headstones. And the donkey, Candace, is saying, good news, we removed all of the Confederate statues. Now, of course, this is what you touched on in your viral video. If the left, and this is what Charles Barkley, by the way, was called a white supremacist for, but Candace, if the left and the media really cared about black lives, what would they be telling black people to get energized about? Would it be the fact that 900 black babies are aborted every day in the United States? Would it be the fact that 93% of black murder victims are killed by other black people? Or would it be 200-year-old statues, Candace?
Absolutely. You're right. It's a total distraction. They don't care about the black community. They care about the black vote. The things that are affecting us, which you mentioned, is the fact that there is black on black crime. Upwards of 90% of the people, black African Americans that are killed by black people. So crime, education statistics, the prison system, which was basically built by the Clinton campaign, which is why, to me, it's the most fascinating thing in the entire world to learn.
Exactly. The tripling of the black prison population happened since 1993 with the Clintons saying, we're going to bring the super predators to heel. And then they've got the nerve, heel like a dog. They got the nerve to say Donald Trump is the bad guy.
Correct. Absolutely. So it's a tactic. They use us every 4 years, to shepherd our votes into the Democratic Party. And they're widening their net now. Now they're using trans people and lesbian, bi. If you're a part of any category, it's all identity politics. And they're using you to feel like you have to care more about the social issues that they themselves are creating, okay? They are funding these protests. They are funding black people getting arrested. And people don't understand. You get arrested protesting like an animal, that's on your record forever. So these black people are going to have difficulty getting jobs, getting into schools, but they don't think that way because, as you mentioned, Alex, they are young. They're all passion and zero intelligence because they don't have real life issues like a mortgage. And it's easy, I guess, for them to just believe that everybody they've ever known is a white nationalist and a racist.
And exactly. And there are some white nationalists and racists out there. Usually they're very poor, mentally ill people that blame everybody for their problems. But what's incredible is it turned out that in Charlottesville, indeed, the entire leadership of the white supremacist groups were, quote, former Obama and former Black Lives Matter and former Occupy just a year ago. No, they weren't just former. It was, and they had State Department officials out there, the first people on the news, directing it all. I mean, it is just amazing how they stage this stuff.
It is amazing. And so, for me, did they kick me down? Absolutely. But the problem is when you try to kill somebody, you better make sure they're dead. Okay, so unfortunately, by the end of Social Autopsy, I was clinging to life support, but I'm back, and I'm back with a vengeance, and I'm going to make sure that I reach out to every black person, every community, to wake them up to this disgusting liberal lie and mass brainwashing, and that's it. They picked on the wrong.
Paul, I'm going to shut up for your amazing guest, but can you get her to recap for people that might have missed that, how they tried to intimidate her with their own threats? First, they reach out as the savior. I'm the savior, and you're going to work under me. Obviously, that woman is just a cutout for a larger intelligence op. That's in the WikiLeaks, large tech companies. And then she gets attacked, and she's supposed to go, oh, you're my savior. That's like somebody on the side of the road, a good-looking woman with her car broke down, and you pull over and you get mugged. I mean, this is literally scams. This is sensational, Paul. Well, I'm sure Candace will explain it better than I, but that was what gave her the red pill, right, Candace? The fact that you were basically bullied, intimidated by these people who were supposedly on your side to begin with, again exemplifying the fact all they're interested in, Candace, is power. It's not about protecting minorities. It's about furthering their own political agenda, correct?
Absolutely. It is all about power.
Speaking of Kanye West, do you think he's starting to wake up?
He's been awake. I mean, I'm the biggest Kanye West fan. Kanye West has never subscribed to any type of politics. You know, it started with people didn't understand what he was doing when he snatched the trophy from Taylor, Swift on stage, and it seemed awful because she was innocent, but he was saying something that needed to be said. And so maybe, see, I even bought into mainstream hype attacking him because the more I learned about him, he was willing to march in there when everybody's against Trump in front of everybody. He's a genius. Kanye West is a genius, and he's never subscribed to groupthink. He's never subscribed to identity politics. And I wrote very early on, before I got involved in politics, if you consider yourself a fan of Kanye West, there's no way that you cannot be supporting Donald Trump. Because what they're both doing is sort of slaying this idea of groupthink, this idea of... And again, I was conned that he was bad, but the more I researched, the guys, they threw him in a mental hospital. They're so scared of him, Paul. No, exactly, and that's what I wanted to get onto with Candace, because I read an interview with you, Candace, where you talked about being bullied for, quote, acting white. Now, this is something that I wondered about and wanted to investigate for a video, is, the influences on black people of popular culture, of the fact that a lot of it went in the direction of, gangster chic in the late 80s into the 90s in terms of rap and hip-hop music. Do you think that that's just an outlier? Do you think that that had a very real impact on black incarceration rates? The fact that we saw this glorification of violence and criminality through the popular culture? Or do you think that that's more of an outlier and most of it is related to socioeconomics? I was going to say it's 50-50. It's definitely partially socioeconomics. If you put somebody's back against the wall and they don't have, money to feed their children or, any place to sleep, they're going to commit criminal acts, of course. But these criminal acts are being glorified in the media. This is how the media presents black people always, right, as these gangbangers. You don't see people like me, and there are millions of black people like me who are super intelligent, who don't subscribe to this sort of, gangster mentality, but that we're not given a voice. Instead, Black Lives Matter is given a voice. These people who write these absurd list of demands are given a voice. And that does seep into your mind. This is just brainwashing. Everything is brainwashing. So they start to think, okay, well, I'm committing these crimes, and me committing these crimes, it's kind of cool. So it's 50-50. One bleeds into the other, I think, for sure. No, I mean, that's what I've noticed, Candace. They seem to reserve the most hateful vitriol, I'm talking about the alt-left, for smart, educated, successful black people. I mean, The Root, which is a black publication, far left, came out and called Charles Barkley a white supremacist, because he said black people should focus more on education and financial success than getting angry over 200-year-old statues. Now, you also covered in the video the fact that your everyday life, your day-to-day activities, you just don't see this race hate, in your interactions with ordinary people. America had 8 years under Obama, a black president, when we heard virtually nothing about the KKK, nothing about white supremacists. Why are we suddenly wall-to-wall hearing about it now? Because the media is trying to teach people a lesson. You didn't vote the way that we told you to. Obviously, everyone, they wanted, their money was invested in Hillary Clinton, okay? They spent a lot of time dedicated to labeling Trump as a racist, a sexist, a rapist at one point. Anything that ended with an ist, Trump was labeled. And they thought that they had the election in the bag. And they lost the election. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to make it seem like all of their baseless threats are real. So now they're going to follow KKK's every move. They're going to follow these sort of extremist rights who represent this much of the population to say to people, look what happened. We warned you that if you voted for Donald Trump, this is what was going to happen. They are going to realize this nightmare. They're going to attempt to, at least, by creating little snippets of day-to-day life that don't represent what the world actually is today. And unfortunately, the majority of people don't know how to think for themselves.
So where does it end? Because you don't want to be called a racist. Everybody kind of keeps getting in line and going along with it. The Republicans get in line with it. And as you experience yourself, we've tracked the ISPs. I've got to do another video on this, on the comments where there's all this race stuff going on. They'll have the white supremacist and the black supremacist, and it's the same IP addresses with a bot just running race garbage to get everybody fighting with each other.
Right, absolutely. Where it ends, people like me, educated Black people, have to stand up, and we have to start speaking out. And I appreciate these characters like Charlie Kirk and Milo Yiannopoulos who go out on campus and they speak up for conservatives. But it's not about going on these campuses and speaking to conservatives. It's about going on these campuses and speaking to liberals. And that's something that white people unfortunately can't do without being labeled a white nationalist. But you're going to be hard pressed when you dig into my family and where I came from to label me a white nationalist and the things I have lived through to label me a white nationalist. So it's incumbent upon people like me, okay, who have the street cred, to get out there and start educating our people to wake up from this dream, this this complete lie.
And I've read some of your family history, which you talked about in the interview, Candice. You were far from privileged. Your family had its problems socioeconomically. But again, you say, here's a quote which I enjoyed: you keep a group captive by keeping it divided against itself. You also said our programming can only be overridden by real experiences, which is what you talked about in the video. How much of this, moral panic, this hysteria over racism, is the result of black people and white people just not talking to each other and instead being told how to view others by the media, by popular
Well, that's the victory, is totally dividing everybody, where you can't even have a prayer vigil now without being beaten up by crazy virtue signaling white people wanting to show they're not racist, so they go beat up some Christian guy that has nothing to do with white supremacism as they spit all over him. I mean, this is mind control.
Right, it is mind control. And to answer Paul's question, this programming, the only way that it's going to get overridden, because it's crazy to me, like you said, that people actually place more stock in what they're being told versus what they're experiencing. So that is to say that if you look on the news and it says it's pouring rain, and you walk outside and it's sunshine, these people will look at you and say, it's pouring rain, which is like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, you have to remind people that they should be placing more stock in what they are feeling, what they are actually experiencing.
And their own instincts, their own common sense. They're exactly like you. In fact, that's the essence of what we do. You just crystallized it. I was thinking about this last night. It's just about going off what you actually experience, not off what you're fed.
Right, and if I believed in what CNN was telling me every night, if I stepped 1 foot out my front door, okay, there would be a KKK member, calling me the N-word and threatening to kill me. That's just not what happens every day. That's not the correspondence.
But it does seem like they're trying to cause the whiplash to get some people to actually do that. And you read the WikiLeaks, they say, we're losing, the people are waking up. What do we do? Well, they say culture war. That's a fancy word for race war. I don't see it happening, but in a minority of easily suggestible people who run the span of skin color, it's going to have them flip out and start going out and shooting congressmen and stuff. So where do you think this ends?
Like I said, it's a movement. I consider it a 5 by 5 by 5 movement. My goal is to wake up 5 people, have them wake up another 5 people, 5 black people. My focus is the African-American community. And at the end of the day, if you can't control the African-American community and you can't control the minorities, the game is lost for the liberals. It really is. It's all they've got left. Is the separation identity politics.
And Alex, I mean, that's what Michael Moore was talking about yesterday when he said, yeah, we just have to get rid of all the white people, then we've got it locked down forever. If we educate the black people, then it's not going to be as easy for them. Trump got way more black support than Mitt Romney did. The other aspect is, Candice, never have people been so transfixed and enraged about history while simultaneously knowing so little about it. Like Martin Luther King's speeches. We had the anniversary yesterday of the March on Washington. It's all about integration, treating people as you wish to be treated. It's about true equality. Black Lives Matter, they try and segregate people. You've got white progressives who say, stay in your lane, don't say anything about Black Lives Matter unless you'll give them permission. They're the ones pushing segregation, the very opposite.
You just said it. It's the white knight controllers, and I'm not making it racial, that's what it is. It's social engineers, all about power, as you said, who cold-bloodedly know what they're doing, where they can then dictate to everyone they're the high priest. It's a new religion. It's a cult.
It is absolutely cool. I couldn't agree more. Everything you're saying is spot on, especially in terms of them knowing nothing about their own history. They celebrate these figures, you know, like Malcolm X, right? Black Lives Matter. They love Malcolm X. Malcolm X is, you know, number one who told you about the liberal tricks. You know, he said, you know, you have to stay away from liberals. They'll kind of get you drinking the Kool-Aid, and they'll have you thinking that the people that are oppressing you are your friends and the people that are being oppressed are your enemies. And that's literally what is happening right now. So they only know sound bites of their history, which is a huge problem. And again, another area that I can inject myself in helping African Americans and other minorities wake up.
Where does your gut tell you? I'm sorry to crash your interview, Paul. It's just so powerful. Plus, you're having Skype problems. This is my last question. Please come on the full show. We'll get you both on. I'll try to get Paul on all the time. People love Paul. He's kind of being pushed off YouTube right now. I think he should do more live stuff. Just do it on our own streams and our own radio stations because he's being censored on YouTube. But clearly, censorship's where they're coming. More demonization. I think they're going to false flag, you know, blow up a black college or something, God forbid. I mean, I can just get in the mind of these globalists that are against humans, period. They're psychopaths. They want to play us off against each other. They could be a Chinese psychopath, a African psychopath, a German psychopath. Psychopaths are all the same. They're less than 1% of the population, but they tend to run everything. So how are they going to hit us? Because I think they're losing right now.
They're losing. They're massively losing. You need but turn off CNN to understand that they're losing. Like I said, I'm one person. I go away, another 10 pop up. You know, you try to censor Diamond and Silk, you know, I pop up, you know. I don't know what their next move is. I just see them as losing. I see it. They're fighting an uphill battle right now because they're getting more and more out of their minds. It's just more and more outrageous. I mean, look at that list of demands that was created by the Black Lives Matter leader of the Louisville chapter. She co-founded that chapter in Louisville. And you cannot read that, even if you're a Black Lives Matter supporter, and go, okay, we're kind of jumping off the deep end here. So I don't know what they're next. I do think that they will do something incredibly aggressive like we saw in Charlottesville. But like I said, the people are waking up, and my voices, we're getting louder, and theirs are going to eventually get smaller.
I can't believe they're so bold that all the white nationalists are like working for Obama a year ago. I mean, how obvious is that?
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Paul, I've taken over the interview, but go ahead.
No, I mean, we had one of them on the show who worked for Occupy Wall Street a year ago, so you're right, very suspicious. The other thing is, this whole this Confederate General, Robert E. Lee, and this was the New York Times that reported this, by the way, not the Daily Stormer. He actually called slavery evil in a letter that he wrote. He freed black slaves on his own plantation. So, you know, I'm not saying he's a saint, but if that's the big racist, hateful icon that they want to tear down, again, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of history. I mean, Candice, again, it comes back to what Charles Barkley said. Why are they so enraged about 200-year-old statues? Because they're being told to be by the media. You called them out by name in your video. They're contriving this. They're fanning the flames of hysteria.
Absolutely, and they are doing their best to create a race war because that will best serve them in the 2020 election. But I don't think it's going to work, and unfortunately for people like you and I, who you really don't even have to be super educated, just a little educated and think for yourself. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch these sort of fake narratives. And then when you call out these fake narratives, to be accused of being an Uncle Tom and a coon. Well, guess what? I've owned the word coon now. My entire vlog series is entitled The Myth of the Coon, because that word is a myth, and it's meant to teach Black people to hate people within their own race that have figured out the game, that have figured out the globalist game. That's why these words like coon and Uncle Tom are the first things that are thrown at people like Dr. Ben Carson, who is extremely accomplished and someone that we should be celebrating. People like Condoleezza Rice, who's extremely accomplished and educated and someone that we should be celebrating, are basically told that they're not Black. Our Black cards get stripped away for being educated. How sad is that? How enchained and enslaved are African-American minds? That is the result when you...
Well, all groups do this. You know, back when I was successful in talk radio and I try to build up other talk show hosts, I would learn that they would get mad and try to pull me down because they just didn't like somebody who was more successful. You have to, once you transcend, it's not a race of people, we're all humans, kind of the loser group, then you get it's all about people that want to be successful and make others successful. And that's what's sad is they freeze people down in these victim areas where they think that's their identity. No, your identity is not being a victim. If you've got a good attitude and you move forward, you're going to find other people that have a good attitude. You got a bad attitude, I don't care what color you are, you're going to be unsuccessful.
Absolutely, I agree.
Paul, final comment?
Yeah, we got about 30 seconds left. Candice, just tell people where they can find you on YouTube and Twitter.
At Red Pill Black, at Red Pill Black on Instagram, the handle at Red Pill Black. It'll also just be kind of, personal stuff. Patreon, if you want to donate so I can keep making videos, patreon.com/Red Pill Black.
I want to see that explode. I want to see 100,000 people on there. And please come back on with both of us. Paul, I'll talk to you right after the show. Thank you so much. Great to talk to you. Red Pill Black. That's an amazing name. We'll be back. Stay with us. We got a lot more coming up. David Knight tomorrow, 8 a.m.